Hi, I'm Nicole, and it's great to be here with you today. Welcome to Kingston Standard Church, our online version. If you're in the Kingston area, I'd love to invite you to connect with us in person. However, if you are limited to connecting with us here online, we're so glad we can walk together as we discover and follow Jesus in this setting. And whether you join us in person or online, be sure to check out our website at kschurch.ca. The link's in the description below. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube and like us on Facebook, so you have the inside scoop on new posts, content, and connections. And if you want to reach us with any prayer requests or questions, you can send us a message on Facebook or email our church office, and that email address is on the screen. Now, whether you're connecting here with us for the first time, or if you're returning to our channel, we have a variety of resources that are available for families on both YouTube and Facebook. Part of our mission as a church is to equip parents for conversations that help families follow Jesus together. Our goal is to connect the weekly themes and scriptures in a way that fosters meaningful family discussions and encourages questions about faith. Check out the link in the description below for our Kingston Standard Church Cabin Kids channel. Or if you're with us on Facebook, we share content there as well, to discover more interactive resources for kids and families every week of the year. You should seriously check it out. Thanks again for tuning into this video. Let's see what God has in store for us today.
Have you ever had one of those moments where you had to make a decision and you just froze? I mean, some people have that difficulty when it comes to choosing where they want to eat. Where do you want to go? I don't know. Where do you want to go? And so on and so forth. I mean, life is just full of so many different kinds of choices. And what's it look like when you have to make a decision? Now, some of us, we scroll on our phones, or we may ask around. Sometimes we may find ourselves overthinking. It's kind of strange, really, when you think about it, that we have access to more information than any other generation in history, and we still wrestle with making good choices. But most of our angst is not all around the area of just food, right? I mean, there's so many other important areas for us to consider, like relationships and whether they're getting complicated, or how do we keep them simple and straightforward, or our finances and not getting into a mess, or trying to be wise with them, or some kind of job change along the way. What do I do? Should I take this risk? Should I take this step? Or even sometimes in parenting moments where you feel like, I'm not sure how to deal with this. I'm kind of out of ideas. You know, at our heart, we all want to do what's right, but sometimes doing what's right doesn't always feel obvious, does it? And we've all been there. Sometimes, maybe you've even felt like in the middle of all that noise, maybe just once you've thought, God, would you please just write the answer on the sky for me? We've all been there. But what if, as we're searching for direction in all the usual places, like advice and experience, and maybe even leveraging some form of control, maybe the wisdom that we may need is closer than we think? We're going to see today that information isn't actually wisdom. We're going to discover that wisdom is actually putting into practice what it is that you know. And we've been following God's big story of redemption. We've started in Genesis, and we've been working into Exodus and into the accounts of slavery and liberation, and then onto the developing nation of Israel that includes King Saul and King David. And so we pick up this thread today in one of those moments that we've just been referring to, one of those times where somebody just didn't know what to do, how to keep moving forward. And that's where we meet a man named Solomon. Now picture this. Solomon is young. I mean, he's probably in his early 20s at the most. And in 1 Kings chapter 3, Solomon steps into one of the biggest leadership transitions in Israel's history. His father David, the psalm writer, the giant killer, the legend, he's gone. And here is Solomon now standing in his father's shoes and also his father's long shadow facing the pressure of leading this nation. And people are looking at him like, boy, we sure hope you know what you're doing. You better know what you're doing. And Solomon realizes he really has no clue what he's doing. He's feeling like he's in so far over his head that he might actually need a stepladder to reach up and touch the ground. But to his credit, he admits it. And so Solomon goes on a pilgrimage to Gibeon, and before the temple is built in Jerusalem, this would be the most important place in Israel for people to connect with God. And he prays and he worships and he sacrifices. And that night, something absolutely incredible happens. God appears to him in a dream, and God says in verse 5, "What do you want? Ask, and I will give it to you." Can you imagine? Like, really? A blank check from the creator of the universe. Ask for anything. No limits, no catch. What would you ask for? Solomon could have asked for any number of things, right? But his answer in verses 7 through 9 in 1 Kings is actually kind of stunning. Let me share it with you. It says, "I'm like a little child who doesn't know his way around, and here I am in the midst of your own chosen people, a nation so great and numerous they cannot be counted. Give me an understanding heart so that I can govern your people well and know the difference between right and wrong. For who by himself is able to govern this great people of yours?" He says, "Lord, I'm young. I don't know how to lead. Like, give me an understanding heart." Another way to say that is, give me a heart that listens to you so that I can govern your people and so that I'll know the difference between right and wrong. It's interesting that in the midst of this challenge, he didn't say, make my army larger or make my life easier or make my brain smarter. No, he says, give me an understanding, also to be understood as a listening heart. Like when we talk about wisdom, it's critical for us to start to realize that wisdom doesn't actually begin with IQ. It's not about information. It actually begins here where we see Solomon in humility, who had the courage to say, "I don't have all the answers, but I do know who does." So Solomon wasn't really asking here for information, was he? He was really requesting a transformation in his life. And God reveals to us and points us in the direction to help us see that's not weakness. It's actually the doorway to wisdom. Now, right after this, Solomon gets his first test, and Solomon receives wisdom, and it starts to show up in how he leads. And there's a familiar account that talks about two women coming before him, and both claim to be the mother of the same baby. And there's no evidence, there's no DNA test, there's no witnesses, there's just pain and grief and a whole lot of accusations that are floating around. And Solomon listens, and then he says something that's absolutely shocking. He says, "Bring me a sword and cut the child in two. We're going to give half to each woman here." And the room, you could imagine, would just go silent because it sounds horrific. And he's watching, he's listening, and he doesn't have to wait too long until one woman quickly cries out, "No, let her have the baby. Just don't kill him." And in that moment, Solomon knows, and we realize he never planned to hurt the child. The true mother is the one who's willing to lose so that the child can live. And so here we get this real life example of how wisdom starts to work, because when wisdom moves into action, it's bent toward compassion. Wisdom doesn't just seek to make good decisions, it seeks to restore what's broken at the same time. And wisdom that listens to God always moves toward love and toward restoration. And wouldn't we agree that that's the kind of wisdom we need in our world today? Wisdom that can extend through us will actually start to transform lives around us. And wisdom at work is compassion that ends up leading to justice, as we see here with Solomon. It's not just knowing what's right, but it's doing what's right for others, whether that's at work or at home or in the sports arena or wherever it is we find ourselves. It's an interesting thing to watch, as justice is what wisdom looks like when it starts to grow up. But many of us are also aware that Solomon's story doesn't end perfectly, does it? I mean, as time goes on, he stops listening. And he began to maybe even see himself as the one with all the answers. He started thinking he had it figured out, or he moved from trusting God's voice to trusting his own. And as a result of whatever that was, his heart turns away from God. And in his mind, maybe he thought he knew better now, but that's where the drift starts in his journey. And really, that's not just Solomon's story, is it? I mean, we've run into a number of different people in our lives where that's been the way that they have operated, and we can find ourselves there too, because every time we push away from God, every time we say, I'll handle this on my own, we're choosing separation from God. And the Bible actually calls that sin. And it's not just doing bad things, it's actually breaking the connection, the relationship with the one who made us for himself. And that separation doesn't just affect this life, it follows us into eternity. But, here's the good news. God didn't leave us there. He didn't just shout direction from a distance. He showed up in the person of Jesus. And Jesus lived a life that we couldn't live, full of perfect humility and perfect wisdom and displaying perfect justice. And then he gave his life, the ultimate act of humility and wisdom and justice, to restore us to God. His death on the cross paid the price for our separation, and his resurrection opened the way for us to live a new kind of life, a life with Jesus, led by his Spirit, filled with his wisdom. So true wisdom really shows up at the cross, when in humility we say, God, I think I've been walking my own way here. I need your grace. I need to listen to you. It's the turning point, where we start looking, instead of for direction on our own, we finally turn to the one who's been reaching for us all along. Solomon's story shows that pattern of wisdom, how it began with humility, to admit that we don't know it all, and how he chooses to listen. Give me an understanding heart, to trust that God is speaking and his voice is near. And then it leads to justice as a result of it being put in action. And he has the wisdom, and we can too, to lead us to love others as well. So Jesus actually shows us how this all fits together with the purpose that wisdom isn't just for good decisions. It's part of a new direction for our lives. And when we trust him, his wisdom starts to take root in us. And then that's what we see when we're realizing that's what he saved us for. Not just, from something, but for something. A life that makes a difference, a life of impact, a life that listens to God and leads others toward him. So, what if the direction we're actually looking for isn't just somewhere out there? As we think about Solomon's wisdom, it really started with the simple confession, I don't know what to do. And that may be the most spiritual thing we could ever say, because humility opens the door, and listening to God keeps it open so that justice has the opportunity to walk through it and be displayed through our lives. Because wisdom is not about information, it is about transformation. It's when we stop pretending and when we kind of act like we've got it all under control and we begin to actually start trusting the one who does. And that's the humble starting line we've been seeing here about wisdom that we all want when we don't know what to do. This may be the moment, right? That we admit, I don't have entirely what it takes to do life on my own. But humility is also the moment we stop running and actually turn to God. It's the moment we realize I need God more than I need control. Solomon came to that moment, and maybe today you're standing at a similar crossroads. You've got decisions to make. You've got tension in your soul, and you're wondering, God, what do I do? And the direction you're actually looking for might be closer than you think, but it may not be a formula or some kind of a plan. It's actually a person. Jesus is the wisdom of God brought near to us, and he's inviting us to trust him today with those things that we're uncertain in, when we just need to admit, I don't know. So, before we rush, before we choose, before we move, what if we just started to pause and pray Solomon's prayer? God, give me an understanding, a listening heart, a heart that's hearing you in this. And maybe, if you've never taken that step of humility to trust Jesus, then today might be the day. James in the New Testament, chapter 1, verse 5 says, if anyone lacks wisdom, he should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault. And the beauty of that is that we don't have to be perfect to ask for his wisdom. We don't have to be powerful in order to operate wisely. And we just need to be willing to listen to him. Let me pray for us today. God, we admit that so many times we've tried to run life on our own, and we've pushed you away, and it's left us oftentimes tired and empty and sometimes even lost. And today we humble ourselves and ask for wisdom. It's your wisdom we need. Thank you for sending Jesus to rescue us from our separation and to fill us with new life through his resurrection. Teach us to walk humbly, to listen closely, and to live justly. May we grow as the people who follow you to understand life with a listening heart. And if you're someone who is here today that the place where you'd like to begin a connection with Jesus, let me encourage you to pray with me, maybe out loud or in your mind, some of these next few words that are part of our continuing prayer today. God, I respond to your invitation to put my faith in Jesus. Forgive me for pushing away from you. Forgive me for trying to live life without you. Forgive me for trusting in myself more than you. Release me into a new future as your follower. Teach me to live as your apprentice with my focus rooted in you. Amen. So if we kind of circle back to where we started, we all want to make wise choices, better choices even for that matter. We want peace in a complicated world, and a direction that we're looking for, as we've said, might actually be closer than we think. It doesn't begin by finding ourselves or getting our lives all figured out, but actually by opening our heart to Jesus. Humility begins with, God, I need you. Wisdom grows with, God, I trust you. And justice results from, now let me live out what you're doing in me. And he's ready to give you the wisdom that you need through a relationship with him who is wisdom and truth and life himself. And if you've prayed with us today to follow Jesus, let me encourage you to reach out and let us help with some resources that can assist you in your journey of following Jesus. There's an email address on the screen, and I'd encourage you to touch base with us and reach out and let us help with that part of the journey. Or even if you're continuing on that path of walking with Him and you find yourself in some uncharted territory, we'd love to hear from you and to encourage you on the journey with Jesus today.
Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channels, including Kevin Kids. And if you're catching this on Facebook, you can like or follow us there too. Before you go, please take a moment to like, comment, or share this video so others can enjoy it as well. And if you find yourself in the Kingston area, it would be great to see you and have you join us for an in-person service. And finally, I'll end with this. Please know that you are loved and we are praying for you. Thanks for praying for us too. We'll see you soon.